Piece of shit. The problem with later model General Motors cars from the 2000s and up is they have really crappy front wheel bearings if they're a front wheel drive, especially their littler models. Like these things that replace the Sunfires and Cavaliers and stuff like that. They're terrible. This car's got just barely over 120,000 kilometers and already needs one of these expensive hub style wheel bearings. They're easy to change. So to change one, remove the wheel, just undo the two caliper holder bracket bolts, throw the whole assembly off to the side, undo the axle nut, and then I'll show you the next step. And of course, this is a loaded model with ABS. So simple as that, just a couple bolts and everything's off and flopping around. Then there's only 3 bolts that takes off the wheel bearing that attaches it to the spindle hub. Then you take your handy dandy sledge, beat on the bearing, or the hub, or whatever you want to call it, and hopefully it all separates itself and falls on the floor and you can start to replace it. Just make sure you don't wreck anything with the wiring for the ABS system. Alright, all 3 bolts are off. Now let's see if this one separates. It's starting to. I'm going to sort of split the other side and move it over. Well, there we go, minus the ABS part that somehow stayed in there. But that don't matter, I got the ABS part anyways. There's 2 different type of bearings for these cars. Probably one's for the turbo car. Depends on the size of the axle splines. So let's just see if this one fits. Hit pause. Now I'm just getting out, hopefully, the ABS sensor unit didn't pop out, which is basically just a coil of wire, nothing complicated. Piece of shit. There we go. Now as you notice, it's all full of corrosion from salt and electrolysis in there. So I have to clean that up before I slide a new bearing on, and then I'll put grease all around both surfaces so it won't happen again. Alright, power off. Handy dandy Dremel tool. If you don't have one of these, you can use a file. good. Now, the lube. Might as well throw a little bit on the axle for good measure. Sometimes they get really seized in there if the car has aluminum wheels like this one does. Well, the next step is not putting on the bearing. It's remembering to put on the splash guard. So you slip that ABS wire up and through there. Get the splines to line up. And I'll turn the wheel back the other way again, makes it easier. Line up that plate. And start each bolt by hand, of course. Now just tighten them up nice and evenly. Sucks the bearing right in. Simple as that. Stop. Well, since I don't ever use a torque wrench, as I've got lots of experience, and you should use one and read the specifications to see how much you're going to torque it. That's my advice, but I'm just going to torque it to a half a Newton meter past the fart, and that'll be just right. There we go. Right on. Sweet. Now just throw your rotor on. Examine how good your brakes are. These ones are good for 5 or 6 months. Give the customer a price for brakes too and tell them when to come back with a case of beer. Put those caliper bracket bolts on. And then we're ready to party. Oh, I gotta turn the wheel again to get this tool on there. Well, that's it, except for plug in the ABS wire, and now we just throw the wheel on. Not even a beer job, so don't even bother opening one. But the customer doesn't know that, so you can charge them an hour if you want. And then you can buy a case of beer. Break out that old plastic clip. Snap in the new parts. And we're ready for an adventure. Don't forget to get that back to the customer. Done. Now I can work on my motorcycle.